Hi and welcome to week one. Like I said, I'm going to try and keep these under 3 minutes. And the format that I think I'm going to do is basically I'm going to try and highlight a theme or a term that I think the Fige's book assumes that we know, and I'll try to do one for every chapter that we're supposed to read. I'm not saying that each one will align with each chapter, but that'll kind of guide me. So these will hopefully never be longer than 3 to 4 minutes long. But the first concept I want to make sure that you remember all through this book is just the vastness of Russia. Particularly under the Tsarist regime, and then of course under the USSR. It's shrunk down quite a bit now. Russia is huge, and it's not only huge, it's diverse. And I want you to be thinking about that, because when we think about revolution and we think about the smaller states like France, like Great Britain, England, it's just everything is much more connected, much more interconnected. When you look at Russia and you see the difference that exists between the reality of the peasants and the reality of the bourgeoisie or the state, you can understand why it was so hard for these two vastly different groups, and then all the groups intermixed, to really get on the same page and do it in a way that that resulted in some stability, because there were so many differences among them. We'll particularly see that as we start to develop Siberia under the Soviets without focusing on connectedness. Lots of issues are not caused by the geographic vastness and diversity, but are absolutely exacerbated by it. Second, the concept of autocracy. This is something that we see throughout Europe, really throughout the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, and then we get to a point where everyone is going through this revolution and this sense of we're going to have the Enlightenment sweep through Western Europe, and then a lot of revolutions are going to happen. That does reach Russia, but much, much later. Again, probably because of its geography. It's kind of on the border of Europe in many ways. But there was this sense that the monarch had a divine mandate, a divine right to rule, and that was absolute. That's why we call it an absolute monarchy. It had different variations throughout Europe, but in Russia you can see Tsar Nicholas really hanging on to this concept that God has appointed him and has given him this right to rule, and nothing will stand in that way. And he doesn't really take the concerns of the peasants or the other voices around him seriously. So that concept informs him. Tsar Nicholas, though, really was never set up to be a czar. And you can see that in a lot of the decisions he makes. He was in many ways a czar by accident. And when you watch some of his decisions, just on his coronation, after the horrible kind of what happened at the Kadinka field on the eve of his coronation, there was a stampede basically for trinkets. And he makes a series of bad decisions because he can't make a decision. He's listening to other people tell him what to do, and in some cases he goes with one and then goes with another one, and he never really takes a stand because he's always wavering. He has really no backbone, and in many ways is so far removed from his people, so far removed from the concepts of statehood, the concepts of true governance, that he is an ineffective leader from the start. So he earns the title Bloody Nicholas. And you're going to see him make a series of bad decisions. The only thing I'm seeing in the Fige's books here is that he's not giving you insight into where those bad decisions were coming from. And many of them were coming from this quartet of uncles, who were always so mad that Nicholas got the crown, but they knew he was so weak they could control his every move. And so I might drop notice about these 4 uncles as we move forward, but one is the head of the Navy, and that's going to come up in our chapters. But one of the things you have to look at is just how weak Nicholas was, how far removed he is, and he and his wife really are you'll see it with the whole Rasputin thing, almost living another life that is not very much connected with reality. And that's important, because in just the time when Russia needed a strong, connected, kind of astute leader, they had Tsar Nicholas, and that's going to hurt them. Alright, so hopefully that helps give a little bit of background. Next week we'll be talking a little bit about, I think, Marxism, Trotsky, and Lenin were the ideas that I had, just so that you had some background going into our reading. Alright, look forward to talking to you.